This edition, we are going to chat with probably one of my favorite people in South Africa. Nothando is a data science master and is going to teach me her ways today a little bit about how the data world works. It's a very interesting field and something that I think all of us are curious about. So thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. Would you mind telling us a little about what you're up to and what you're all about and the cool foundations that you're involved in?
All right. Thank you so much, Anine, for giving me this opportunity. You're also definitely one of my favorite people. Yeah, so my name is Nothando Magagula. I am a data scientist by profession. I also co-founded Tech In Heels Foundation, and I happen also to be the chairlady of Tech In Heels. And that particular foundation, we founded it because we saw the gap, especially in young girls, where we saw that they're not so much digitally inclined from a young age, which when they go into their careers, they'll find that they don't have enough digital skills. So that's where we saw the gap, and we're like, you know what, we need to get our young girls more equipped into this fourth industrial revolution that South Africa is slowly getting into. So I think we're fortunate enough where we are seeing what the world is doing, and we can also hop onto that and gear our little girls and get ourselves geared up for what is to come as well. So that's what the foundation does. I'm very passionate about women in technology. I'm a strong advocate for women in technology. It's one of my passions, where literally I want to make sure that the next people who come after me have better workspaces, inclusive workspaces. They have the necessary confidence and all of that. So that's why I'm passionate about women in technology, because I want to create change, even if it's a small dent into the world, I'll be happy, because if I can just impart that little bit of change within our environments, then for those that come after me, they can be able to also be comfortable in an environment like that. I'm also very passionate about data. Very, very, very passionate about data. I think when I started off in my career, I wasn't too sure exactly what about technology that I wanted to find myself doing, and which led to me doing a number of things. But I think all of them, what they have in common is data, and how much I just love working on data, from it being raw all the way to giving insights and bringing value to organizations using data. So yeah, I hope I didn't explain too little.
No, I love it. I think that's one of the things that we have in common, is essentially just wanting to see more empowered, more talented women in tech, and to make a really inclusive space. I read an article recently where, apart from us needing to promote that inclusivity in general, we need to maintain it as well. And they actually advocated for the fact that you need a working space where you are heard and you've got that voice. So fantastic work. Also, data is the way of the future. It's the new currency.
It really, really, really is. It definitely.
So what made you decide that data science is the one out of all of the stuff?
I think that I always say it was a gift and a curse at the same time, where I found myself doing a lot of things, where I worked as in development, I've worked in data engineering, and I think out of all the types of jobs that I was doing when I was in development, I was always interested in what the analysts were doing after we've developed a particular software or particular tool. I was like, but what are they going to do with this? What data is going to get loaded? I was never fully fulfilled, in saying that after developing, okay, what's the next project? I literally found myself saying, what's going to happen with this, and how are the customers happy about this particular product that we've developed? How are they making use of it? And then when I moved into data engineering, where it was just create the data, make it the way the data analysts are going to use it. create proper infrastructure for them to actually use the data. And then I always ask myself, okay, now I'm tailoring this data for people who are still going to make use of it, you know. And then I would still be curious to say, I want to know what they're doing with this data. I want to know what value of the work that I'm doing as a data engineer, on what value it's going to bring to a particular department, you know. And I think I started to say, okay, I love the coding, I love the data wrangling part as well. And then I was like, but where can I sort of integrate all of this, you know? What role do I need to find myself in to actually be part of the processing of the data, all the way to giving insights and now sitting with stakeholders and actually sharing the analyses and all of that. And then I started to research, you know, I started to research, and that's where I started seeing that, oh, there's something called data science, you know, because when I was in varsity, data science wasn't as big as what it is today, you know. So it's not like when I came out of varsity, I knew off the bat that data science is what I want to do. So when I started researching and saying there's a particular career called data science, and that's when I started reading up on it. And I was like, whoa, this is so broad. But at the same time, it involves all the little bits and pieces of what I like. And this is what I want to find myself doing. And I think for me, if it wasn't for me actually researching, and I think even on LinkedIn, for example, I like using examples of saying that, for example, in the US, they are a lot further than us in terms of technology. So when you sign up to their publications and you get to see what they are doing that side, I think that it gives me this side to say, okay, South Africa is a bit behind, but this is already happening somewhere else. It's definitely going to hit our shores. So how do I prepare myself for what is to come? And that's where I started researching to say, okay, these are the skills that I have. How do I add on top? So I don't think without, you know, without researching and actually putting myself out there to say this is what I want to find myself doing, I don't think I would have gotten into data science, because I was probably going to continue having that curious mind of saying, okay, after I'm just done with data engineering, oh, what do they do with the data? Worry about that. But I don't think I would have taken the step if I didn't do the necessary research. So research for me was very important.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it does bring me to the question of, as someone who is maybe a graduate going into the industry, what are some of the skills that you need to start building up if you want to make this your career? Is it important to first do a bit of development work and then do some data engineering, or can you sort of jump the gun? How does it work?
I think for me, like I'm saying, I was fortunate because I did have the experience of the data engineering side as well as the development side. And I think it was easier for me to fill in those particular gaps, right? But what I did find is quite important is that when it comes to data wrangling, when it comes to manipulating the data from its raw form, is quite important. Whether it's cleaning data using simple Excel, you know, or it's knowing basic SQL, you know, to sort of extract that data, because sometimes when you are put in a particular role, you find that, I always say this, data scientists are also unicorns, because you need to know so many things in order to get your job done. So it's very important to kind of have the basic database type of skills, which is your SQL, and to very intricate skills where you are now writing specific code, whether it's in Python or it's in R. So I think the specific skills that are important, that I feel that if somebody wants to get into this particular field, they need to understand the basic forms of data, you know, the basic tools that you can make use of. Like I'm saying, I've seen people do analysis using Excel, because there's actually quite a number of things that you can do also using Excel. But obviously, once you go into the big data side of things, then you'll need a lot more smart tools and smart technologies like your Python and R. So I think what's important is to have your basic data cleaning, data wrangling, data extraction skills, and then you can start filling in the gaps where now, depending on your coding skills that you have, then you can start being specific to say, okay, maybe let me start learning some Python, you know. And and Python is actually, I never learned Python in university. I actually enrolled to courses. I started off by watching YouTube, and once I started to learn from YouTube, I actually entered Kaggle contests where I was just downloading stuff and now practically doing it for myself. And I think in this particular role, it's very important that your passion for actually wanting to enhance your craft is very important, because it will extend far beyond your specific roles that you are given. Because if I can think of my first role that I was given when I was now actively learning and trying to get into being in data science, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing today, I wasn't doing. So it was very important for me to continuously learn and have that passion to want to actually learn and test all these skills. Because you can say in theory, hey, I watched a couple of YouTube videos, now I know how to code in Python. But can you really practically apply that and challenge yourself? So coding is very important. You need to know how to code. I don't think you can actually run away from it. So if you're a graduate, know your basic data wrangling, manipulation, and extraction skills. Know a bit of coding. Like I'm an advocate of Python more than I am of R. And I could also just say, also know learning as well. I mean, there's so many different types of machine learning models that you can make use of. And I think with machine learning, it's how practically you apply it to whatever task that it is that you need to do, where you now start applying your regression, you start looking at decision trees and all of that. So that goes a bit more intricate, but it's, I would say, something that you need to also look at, so that when you start enhancing your skills, you at least have that backbone of certain things that you can just build on top of. So definitely coding is very important.
It's interesting to see, because I mean, in the development world, you have all of these tools. I sometimes feel like you could probably theoretically learn everything online for free, but you need to have that practical application. There was an article on this week on exactly that, on how you can either go the fast way and just get through the courses as quickly as possible and not apply them, and then ultimately fail your technical interview because you don't actually know how to apply them. And I love that you've gone on to Kaggle and actually done the quizzes and challenged yourself in that respect. So when it comes to you guys interviewing and recruiting data scientists, how important is it for you to have sort of a bit of a portfolio or some experience? What do you guys look for?
So when it comes to that, we're actually having this conversation with my colleagues yesterday, and what's important is that when you are recruiting for data scientists or for any data type of careers, I think what's very important as an organization is that you need to know the specific strategy that you're trying to drive, right? If your strategy is a data-driven strategy, it's very important for you to be able to pinpoint the correct individuals who can actually put that strategy into practice. You know, if you're not focused on getting bots and automating things and all of that, then your needs are going to be a little bit different than versus an organization that is looking to be future fit, you know. So when you're recruiting, which is something that I wish that recruiters as well would communicate with people who are trying to get into the field, is that when we put out these job posts, we write so many of these skills where you need to know Java, you need to know R, you need to know SQL, you need to know Python, and it's so broad, because I don't think that there's ever that one individual who 100% fits exactly what it is that you're looking for. So it's very important that as organizations, when we recruit, that we know exactly what type of role and what gap we're trying to fill by getting this person into our organization. So it means that the tools that we have in the organization are they going to be doing once they come here and we've now hired them, you know. So we ourselves, technologically, in terms of the strategy, we need to know exactly what it is that we're looking for, because when we put out these broad job posts, I look at them as well sometimes, and they're intimidating. They're literally intimidating, because it's like I have 60% of this, and you know, sometimes as a woman, you want to fit that job description to you know, to even the soft skills part, you know. And I think that's what a lot of people are fearing about being in this data science industry, because they're like, how am I supposed to know everything? And I think that's what we need to make easy, you know, it by just having the right strategies within our organization, so that when we know this is what we're looking for, we can put the correct job post that people can actually apply to with confidence. If for example, the person, we hire them and we find that we're changing technologies within the organization, then it's up to us now to fill in the gap, to upskill, you know, upskill our individual to get them to where we want them to go. Because I mean, this field, unlike like every other field, is a continuously changing one. So learning is part of the job. You know, sometimes you find yourself, you're using Amazon Web Services, the next time you're on Azure, the next, like, you need to constantly change because of the different types of needs that you might get across these different platforms. And sometimes you need to unlearn and learn again. So I think when we put out these job posts, and when recruiters do it as well, I think the communication needs to be put out there, so that people are not so, oh my gosh, how am I even going to meet this? Because it's so broad. Sometimes you ask yourself, is this even real? You know, because what they're asking for is just like, there's not that one individual who can have all of that. So I think what's important is to have proper specific posts, because sometimes you'll sift out so many good candidates because they don't fit what you're looking for, and you find you could help them by upskilling them once they're in the organization as well.
Absolutely. It's something that speaks to doing your job properly on all sides of the fence, to the degree where me as a non-technical person, I need to go to the hiring manager and actually clarify, is this actually what you need? You know, are these skills reasonable? Why only X, Y, and Z? Why only Python without Django? What happens if they have Django and not that? You need to have these conversations, and I think a lot of the time, historically, as recruiters, people have been too scared to probe and to ask, and ultimately it's a bad relationship for everybody. You need to know what you're looking for, otherwise you're going to look for a unicorn, and that unicorn might not exist, or you might find the wrong person and they might walk into a role and be absolutely unhappy in where they are. It's very important for us to manage expectations at every step, and it's a mark of professionalism for a company to also say, we've brought someone in, now we've changed the plot. We're not going to just let them sit in the corner and not go onto a project. We're going to invest and show them going forward, you know?
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
and it's such a changing game. Our industry changes essentially every day. So the goalpost is always going to be there. So I think perhaps as a tangent onto that, what are some of the things that you wish you knew when you started your job hunt going into this?
I think for me, what I wish I knew is what to expect, you know. I found myself in situations where um, I felt that I wasn't necessarily the fit. I was a good fit on paper, but now when you've taken me and you've placed me in a particular place, I have the skills that got me here, but I'm not a good fit for the organization, you know, or fit for the division. And I think that's what's very important, because when we see these posts, I think even us as people who are actively searching in the market, I don't think we probe enough as well, because we're just looking for that opportunity. And once we get there, we realize that there's a lot of questions that we should have asked. And I think it's very important for very technical roles that we ask the right questions, because you can be a good technical person with all the skills, but the wrong fit into an environment that doesn't even have the budget to buy for the tools that you need in order for you to perform at your optimum. And then you can literally just sit in the corner and park. And that's exactly what I just, you know, wish I knew when I was job hunting, to say it's okay to ask the questions, you know. And I also think that sometimes with recruiters, ask these questions so that they can also better themselves and better these posts as well. And I think it's very important for us to constantly ask questions, you know. When somebody has listed all these technologies, ask and say, okay, what is currently happening in the organization, you know. It's almost like on a consulting basis as well, where you're like, okay, what is it that they have? You can even find that you've got great recommendations as well. But if you do not ask those questions, literally, I found myself in a situation where I had all the skills, I could do everything that they wanted, but because they were not ready technologically to do the necessary budget changes or to make the necessary arrangements in their strategy to move into this future fit type of career, it led me to be stagnant, and I had to now sort of have to find my way to getting out and finding something that's going to help me grow as well. Because we forget that sometimes we look at these job posts and we say, okay, it is a great opportunity. But once you're in, there were certain cases maybe you had to ask to say, okay, where are they willing to take me as well as an individual into this organization? So definitely ask questions. Look at that post, and if you're brave enough to only fit 60% of it and find yourself applying, because you should, I mean, take your shot, shoot your shot, as people say nowadays. Shoot your shot, and if they happen to like your profile, and now you're in the stages where they're starting to engage with you, engage with them as well. You know, sometimes I think as people who are job seekers, sometimes when we get the opportunity, we tend to, you know, just say, you know what, I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to mess it up. But sometimes it's very important to ask those questions, because you don't want to find yourself in a situation where now you've accepted a job offer and it's not helping you grow in your career. It's doing absolutely nothing for you. So ask questions. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also okay to say, no, this isn't my opportunity. There is no
Yes.
shame, and it's hard because as South Africans, we're so keenly aware of the fact that opportunities are limited. And sometimes we're so eager to just take it because it looks great on paper, only to sort of realize that this was not quite what we expected. I think you touched on a very important point. You need to ask them, what are the support structures that you have for me? How will you actually measure whether I've done my job well? In 3 months' time, what happens then? You know, what is your expectation of me? And then clarify what your expectation is of them as well, because it does happen where, especially in the tech space, they want to be future fit, and maybe they haven't really thought it through, or the person in the team who's pushing for this doesn't know the ins and outs as much as you do, and they've sort of come through and found this gem with all of the expectations. So please, yes, ask questions and take the shot. The best advice I've ever gotten was to have the conversations. You know, you don't lose anything if you do it professionally, and if you have a conversation with someone, you might just find out that maybe this isn't your role, but someone in your world is looking for exactly this. So very, very good advice. So perhaps to wrap us up, is there anything that you guys are working on that you'd like to share with the community?
I think at current moment, we've had to sort of pause a lot of our initiatives because of the regulations and because we're dealing with young girls. It's not when you're dealing with adults that you can just assemble them in one place and do something with them. So currently we've paused our initiatives. I mean, the fact that we're all working from home as well, but what we're doing is that we're constantly keeping in touch with our girls. We have Zoom meetings with them. We still send them their material because a lot of them come from very, very poor environments, where some of them we need to start from the basic, where we need to give them material on what a computer is before you can actually give them a computer to actually work on. So we still materials, we're still keeping in touch with them, because I also think that when you become part of a child's development, you need to constantly always show face, always be there, show that you're caring even during this time. So, but we have our social media platforms as Tech In Heels Foundation. We've got a Facebook page. You can search Tech In Heels Foundation, as well as Instagram and LinkedIn. Our digital initiatives, those we keep going on a weekly basis. And when we have other initiatives as well, that's where people can get our information and know what exactly we are busy with. But at the current moment, we have nothing physical that we're actually busy and imparting on, but we're keeping all our communication digital just for the safeness of the kids.
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to contribute, please do follow, go reach out to the ladies. They are doing amazing work. Nothando, thank you so much for your time. It has been a delight as always. I will link all of your socials below, and I look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and I hope everybody is I'm happy with the talk. I hope I gave enough information, and thank you so much for always extending your platforms to just helping the girls rock.
Why are we here? We gotta help the girls out. But thank you so much. All right, guys. See you soon. Bye.